Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Blashauskas to give a presentation. Thank you.
So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is really a privilege and honor to speak to such audience like yours. And I would like to thank for organizers to invite to participate in this symposium. And thank you for the possibility to speak to you. What I'm going to talk about. First of all, I will give some indicators of innovation, or in generally speaking, the base of commercialization of research idea in the countries. And then I will give a case of Kaunas University of Technology, how we do cope with this issue, and some figures. So I would like to start. I do have quite a lot of slides. I will skip some of them to save the time, because I know for everybody is 15 minutes, correct? So the first picture you see, this is global competitiveness indicator. The data is taken from Davos Forum report. Of course, you know these figures, but what is interesting, 2 points, that if we talk about innovation in the country, this is very much related the figure GCI, and this is the main which reflects the innovation is this indicator. Another thing is very important. Quite often we start to speak that Baltic Tigers question mark. You can see the gap, the difference. Unfortunately, still there is a huge gap between the countries like Finland, Denmark. And this is real figures. Innovations. What is the base of innovations? And you can see again a huge difference between Denmark, Finland, and Baltic countries. But from another point of view, what is the base for innovation in the country's development of economy? You see three main pillars, or 3 main key roles, and they belong to the university. And I can say that in this process, university should take the leading role, and it depends on universities' activities in the countries, because who can guarantee the quality of scientific research institutions? University. Who can guarantee how many researchers and scientists prepare in the country? University. Cooperation, university, industry, university, business. Main actor, university. Why university? Because the biggest concentration of business ideas in university, diversity of competence, different competence, university. Actually, we do need some non-profit projects. They can be done in university. And some other things you can see from other arguments why university is the base. You can see yourself. Now, very briefly, how we do cope in Lithuania to strengthen this process, to strengthen the innovations in the country's development. So, in Kaunas University of Technology, new management came in 1 year ago, and we started from, of course, strategy, new strategy, quite ambitious. You see vision, definition is very ambitious, and 5 main areas. 2 main areas is standout, is studies, research. Another is sustainable development, it's unusual, but this is important of nowadays of development. Then is quality and efficiency in every step, and development of environment and infrastructure. These are our key areas in strategic development. Priorities we focus to strengthen the process I'm talking about. Of course, talented and motivated students, critical mass of world-class teachers and researchers. Very important triangle, well-known triangle, studies, research, business. Interdisciplinarity, extremely important, internationalization as well. of course, quality and efficiency of management of university as well. University is a big unit. It's not the biggest in only in Lithuania, but it's the biggest in the Baltics. I'm not going to tell in details how many departments, how many faculties. This is roughly 15,000 students, 1,000 teachers and researchers. And what we found very important points, to have a balance within age groups. And we were focusing to reduce the number of elderly professors. We managed to do this. And now we, sorry for that, but this is true. And now we think that we have real balance of age groups in the university. Figures, not so important. 2 words about budget. Very important to have budget independent from the state. And we are proud that only 50% of our budget comes from the state, and the rest we earn ourselves. Institution fees, grants, European funding, different competition. And this part of budget is growing. Our clients, we would wish to have clients outside the country, from the Baltic States, from the European countries, but unfortunately the main today clients is Lithuanians, middle of Lithuania, and our competitors. In Lithuania we have, sometimes we say, but we do have too many universities. Actually our competitor, main competitor, Vilnius University, and here you can see some figures, but to saving time. What is important in all Central and Eastern Europe in the crisis period was a drop of enrollment of students, and what we are proud of situation that last year we managed to stabilize the situation and even enrolled 11% more undergraduates and even 30% of master students more than last year. One of our focus is English language programs. We managed to double all of them as undergraduate and postgraduate programs as well. PhD studies, maybe I save time. There is another item I want to stop, I skip. Our potential, one figure I would like to show you, this figure, our participation in framework projects is 28. Really impressive figure, and it shows about our research potential, that our possibilities for the future is quite good. Of course, we pay attention to top-level publications, as ISI publications. Our main research areas, grouped research areas, I'm not going to stop. Some research and development quality criteria as well. Saving the time, I'm not going to go in details. In this place, I would like to stop because the topic innovation and development of economical situation in the country. Very important to start the process of commercialization of research idea from the very beginning, from the idea to the product, from the idea to the spin-off, startup, whatever you do. And from my point of view, the main actor in this activity is university. And probably you heard, Lithuanians definitely know, in our case, this government, I think, at last they understood that they have to support this idea, and they support it through the, as it is called, Valleys project. In Lithuania we have 5 valleys, 2 valleys in Vilnius, 2 valleys in Kaunas, and 1 in Seaside, in Klaipėda. And what does it mean, valleys? That means, like, the idea is the same like Silicon Valley. They are close to the universities. We are trying to collect the leaders in research and to buy new equipment, modest labs, and to organize open access centers where the business, where the companies coming in. Of course, many years we are talking about this, that university and business supposed to cooperate. Probably you remember that 10 years or even more years ago, it used to be created business incubators, technology centers, and different other structures. But honestly speaking, these structures are only renting the space for the companies. But we never started a real process like it is done in Scandinavia, like it is done in America. And this is why our focus to start this real process. What is needed mainly? 3 things. Know-how, competence. We are trying to work with Aalto University. We have very close cooperation with them, and together with them to Stanford University. So know-how coming through this channel. Another thing, experienced young entrepreneurs group. We attracted some people who already have experience in this area, who already created the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And the rest, some money. Some money we have, and very often in universities and research structures, they complaining that we don't have money. So we should use efficiently money, and we always, for that good purpose, we can find it. And this process already started. It's easy, as I mentioned, to construct the building. It's easy to buy equipment if it is money. But this process needs some attention and some support. In general, if we talk about this kind, only about this picture I could speak 2 hours, but very few words. What is the main thing? Cooperation. Cooperation, university, state, and business is extremely important, as we call creating ecosystem. Another thing is very important to start the process as early as possible, even from secondary school, to give the knowledge about this process, then later on to develop startup, as we call startup culture in higher education and in all environment. And then probably most of you know the process. Seed money, receive money, evaluation, and then companies, and then so on and so on. So anyway, probably I have to go to that, correct? Some conclusions. As I already mentioned, from my point of view, if we talk about countries' innovation and competitiveness improvement, the university's role is crucial. University has to take key role in this process. Another thing probably is possible to do this. This is not my new invention or somebody's invention, already experienced from America, from Scandinavia, that it could be done through the structures at the universities, the structures like entrepreneurship centers. And another thing is, again, very important, this famous triangle: studies, research, and business, to work together, and cooperation, state, business, and university as well, important. To create an ecosystem, as I mentioned, this is crucial things, and we are trying to do. I think within 1 or 2 years, we definitely managed to move ahead this process or not. Of course, time will show, but according to the first steps, we are satisfied, and it seems that critical mass already exists. Why I sometimes say critical mass exists? Because if there is interest only from university, we do nothing. But especially last year, I found for myself that a lot of companies already recovered after the crisis, and they do need research, they do need cooperation. They're coming to the universities and say, we do want to cooperate with you. That means the interest from both sides. If there is interest from both sides, and the third thing, government, it seems, at least in Lithuania, that they understand, they do have support this process. So 3 main pillars, and we hope that this is going to be successful. If we meet after 2 years, I will tell you we failed or managed to do something. Thank you very much. One second extra. I'd like to thank Andres for very nice presentation, for very critical presentation, but I should say not everything as in such black colors as he mentioned, and it might look like. So there are some good things as well. So
thank you.
So thank you for having me here. Yeah, so my name is Raj Australia. A few words about myself while the presentation is being set up. I'm the maybe a bit of an unusual case in politics, in that I'm in politics for only about half a year. And before that, in my what I now call the previous life, I was an academic. So we know each other since those days. I was assistant professor in economics at the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, and then in the a bit of an unexpected turn of events, I got elected in September with the new Reform Party, which was created basically a matter of, I think, 2 or 3 months. And then came second in the election results. And as a result, we are, well, basically the one of the 3 parties which make up the ruling coalition at this moment. And I am a replacement for the economics minister here today, who is also a member of our, okay, he's not a member of our party, but he's nominated by our party, right? So this is originally, as well as I'm a replacement for the minister, that's originally the economics minister's presentation. However, I was maybe a bit of a conflict between the executive and the legislature. I had a look and I made some cuts, so as a result, there's only 2 slides remain from the original presentation. They are easy to recognize because those are the graphs. Okay, just I'm going to have a quick introduction into what has been through. Maybe it's not really necessary given the audience here. And then I'll talk about this basically one feature of our pre-election program and what the ministry is trying to, well, not they do it, but it's trying to do at the moment. That's this new industrial policy, which happens to be something that's I've put together as I was also largely responsible for the pre-election, well, economics program of the Reform Party. Okay. So there's something that's not news to you. It's, well, Latvia has experienced one of the steepest economic crises, I would maybe even say, over the last 100 years. I think the Great Depression is the first one that comes to mind. Based on these figures, that should be the second, right? So GDP cumulative decline 35% over 3 years, unemployment peaking 20%, and this all real estate price dynamics, emigration is kind of the wow for the economists. I'm not going to stop here. That's something we're going to talk about in a week at the Association for the Investment in Baltic Studies. We're going to be presenting on specifically the Baltic crisis here. Well, however, after this, a bit of a reference to this Baltic Tiger presentation, Latvia, together with the Estonia and Estonia, have some of the highest economic growth rates in Europe. Of course, the open question is whether that's the kind of the back to the Tiger dynamics, or is it just the base effect? Well, the base effect being that when you have a fall that large, double-digit for all the countries in 1 year, then typically after that the base is so low that it's not very surprising that at least the initial economic growth rates are pretty high compared to the other countries. Of course, the question is, can it be sustained? And the question is, well, how can it be sustained? That's what's your approach to economic development, right? How do you look at this? And here I'll start with maybe some pretty simplistic, well, I only have 10 minutes, overview of what the approach has been since the 1990s. Well, since the 1990s, and I would also say much of the early 2000s, right, the approach to, like, the thinking about the economic development in Latvia has largely been according to what's known as the Washington consensus. I don't know how much you think about this, you know about this, but in a very, very primitive way, it's basically consisted of kind of the basic Washington consensus, which is, well, you got to achieve macroeconomic stability, secure the property rights, and the enforcement, yeah, privatize, and you have the kind of the basics. You've done that in Latvia, for example, banking stability. Largely been about this, the independence of the central bank. Our central bank is well, very independent, maybe more independent than some people would like to sometimes. But the second one, get the business environment right. It's the regulation, barriers to businesses, administrative barriers, and so on and so on. And then that's kind of the second one is what they more call like the extended version of consensus. And then the story is that once you're going to do that, you're going to do the macroeconomic stability, like the stable government finances, low inflation, you're going to get the business environment right, like few barriers to entry, deregulation, privatization, etc., etc., etc. Then the things will sort of happen by themselves, right? Well, of course, not by themselves, but then the private initiative within this framework will start working, the markets will work, and then the economic prosperity will be the result of this. Okay. So, just to have a chance to advertise my country a bit with regards to the business environment and the macroeconomic stability, we've been pretty good, right? We say that doing business that base, which is at this moment one of the leading kind of measures of the European environment. Latvia is now almost within the top 20 countries in the world. I have a pleasure to point out with a better rating than Estonia. and we'll make more progress. So, in the 2000s, I would say it's really a bit different than in the 1990s. Right? Largely, I would, again, maybe somewhat cynically point out, marked by the, well, what was by then, of course, the clear kind of increasing desire and plan on progress to join the European Union, therefore looking at what the European Union does, listening to what it says, and so on and so on. So, largely there were things, it's going to be more activist approaches in the EU, which were largely copied and pasted to the Baltic States, to Latvia. Right? Well, for example, the EU provides loan guarantees for the small businesses. Let's do the same thing. Right? Maybe not thinking about is this kind of how appropriate is what the rich countries do to the more poor countries. Right? Or the EU says we're going to have more innovation and science and so on and so on. Prove the same thing. Right? Again, maybe without much thinking of why, but that's so quite a bit of this kind of more activist measures have appeared, I would say, in the 2000s, the late 1990s, but largely they were kind of the copy and paste, I would say, initiatives from the more developed countries. Also, I would say that they need to absorb the EU structural funds, you know how it works. You got to kind of sell a program to the European Commission, to sell kind of the national action plan and so on and so on, which implies that you should have some idea about, okay, how to spend this money to achieve some kind of national economic developments and so on. So no matter how primitive these national action plans might appear, but they've still been kind of some, let's compare to the 1990s, some more serious attempts to think about, okay, what do we want to do, what are they doing, so we have this kind of helicopter drop of cash from the European Union, how are we going to spend it to sort of achieve some better economic development. Well, then I would say the marking point was the economic and financial crisis of 2008. The big kind of picture of things. You think about this. Well, we got the government finances right, the low inflation, the budgets balanced, the government debt like single digit, less than 10%. The business environment all good, no complaints, and then something like this happened. Right? So somehow this the market's taking care of the rest is well, results in maybe not what people have envisaged. So of course there's not a question of so forth, well, why, and should the government have done something, and if the government should have done something, then maybe the government should have done something also in the other areas, and there's been quite a bit of rethink about the role of the government, and of course, even as usually happens in the crisis, the popularity of kind of the leftist guys, the ex-communists and so on, which of course the old instincts are, let's move back to something more resembling the kind of the central planning or planning of any sort. And of course, that also coincided with the motion consensus losing its special appeal worldwide. Right? You have all this, both the kind of World Bank commentary, the Daniel Rodriguez, this kind of famous article, the wide motion consensus, and so on and so on. So say, at that time also kind of do worthwhile. The Washington consensus basically is gone, and what's left of this place is not really clear. So there's been some first attempts at kind of the more pronounced activist policies in Latvia that would be kind of even say unthinkable before that. For example, there's been quite some serious attempts by both the Bank of Latvia and the Economics Ministry to try to set some priority industries. The Bank of Latvia is kind of the more scientific approach. The Economics Ministry is more, let's say, less scientific. And that did not, well, that did not quite fly, even though it did have work. It was more kind of used to grow sort of industries like the retail trade out from receiving the EU financing. Right? In 2011, however, after the elections, Baltic Economic Ministry now looks into the new approach. That's something I'll talk about. And as I said, it does happen to. It does so happen that this new approach is something I put in basically in the Reform Party program. And now this is something the Economics Ministry has to do, even though there are some difficulties of translation. Well, which is why much of this slides Spanish romanization. Anyway, so what's the idea? Right? The idea is based on Daniel Rodrik's work on the new industrial policy. I don't know if you know who Daniel Rodrik is. He's, I can say I'm a US educated economist, right? In the free market terms, I'm as free market as they come, basically, in terms of my education, right? The mainstream guy. The Daniel Rodrik is someone at the Harvard University, but not the economics department's Kennedy School of Government, so he's not a mainstream economist, even though quite well known, but kind of more exploring the new ideas, looking at the South Korean experience, and so on and so on. So that's basically on a loose bunch of articles which are, I think, not even published in any proper economic journal, but basically laying out the ideas for this new industrial policy, which I think is quite interesting. Well, the underlying idea for this is that both think about the production inputs for a firm. Right? They can be sort of about as kind of private. Economists like to talk about it, how those production function or something. Right? The labor, capital, and they can be sort of about as public, right? Such as, well, for example, product rights and the enforcement. Right? I'll take a country as Somalia, for instance. It has labor, it can have capital, but it doesn't have a lot in terms of competitive firms because there's not much of property rights and the enforcement, right? So there's no point for an entrepreneur to set up a business or invest in the business because there's a very good chance that whatever he will produce will be taken by somebody with a Kalashnikov machine gun. Right? And there's many people with Kalashnikov machine guns all that. So you can't have a competitive firm if you don't have also this public inputs. So this is also something that we call the public goods. Okay, that's not an economics audience, so people tend to think that they understand what the public good is, but then when they understand, everybody starts appearing like public good. But for the economists, there's some two very specific criteria for what a public good is. One is that it's non-excludability, so that you can't exclude other people from consuming that good. The other one is the jointness in consumption, so that the one more person consumption of that good does not diminish the benefits that the others get from consuming that good. Right? So once you start thinking about this in such strict manners, many things will not appear to be a public good. So anyway, so this kind of the public goods which people from the Econ 101 classes get, right? The lighthouse, the defense, the property rights, and so on and so on, right? But really, one starts thinking about this kind of the country-wide public goods, right? Which there's a broad agreement that these are the public goods which the government should provide. But one starts thinking about this can also be much kind of smaller in scale public goods. They can be industry-specific, can be region-specific. I'll give you an example. Take the tourism industry, right? From the tourism industry point of view, something like, think about a festival organized by some city, right? That is a public good, right? Now, what's the big deal about this is that from the industry's viewpoint, which is usually composed from a bunch of different firms, and they can be the hotels, the tourism operators, and so on and so on, it's hard to come to an agreement to organize a festival, right? Because precisely it's, as we say, non-excludable and joint in consumption, right? Once you organize a festival, you cannot exclude a certain hotel from enjoying the benefits of that, right? The tourists come, you can't force the tourists not to come to the hotel that did not participate in financing this festival, right? So there's another stability thing. There's the joint consumption. Well, again, the tourists come attracted by the festival. They spend money in the restaurants. They they stay in hotels and so on and so on. So there's the whole industry kind of benefits from this, right? But from this comes the so-called the free riding dilemma, right? From the point of view of any firm in the industry, it pays not to pay for the festival, but if the others pay for the festival, then to reap the benefits of the resulting interest. And that's why the public goods are really hard to provide by a bunch of individuals or firms. So the idea here is that, well, there can be this industry-specific public goods as well, like in the case of this tourism industry. Now, of course, the competitiveness of the industry, no matter how we define it, whether it's the cost of the unit of output, with stability of how we like to now talk about innovations, that's the ability to produce some sort of modified or better products, of course depends on the availability also of this public inputs, right? Now, the problem, of course, as just pointed out, is that the economists like to, well, this political economists like to talk about this over the collective action problems, which is exactly the sort of problem I just described. That this, think about, even at the time when you faced your first collective action problem and you had to agree with your friends on how to organize a party or something, right? Who's going to get the rules, how they agree on the choice and so on and so on. That wasn't so simple, right? So the indices then are faced with these collective action problems. They take time to be solved. For example, the first trade unions appeared maybe like 100 years later after the kind of more industry as such, right? And then there's maybe one explanation for why there's a gap between the developed countries and the developing countries, right? This developed countries just had more time, and the industry had more time to resolve these collective action problems and provide the public inputs, the public goods for themselves, or whatever they are. And developed countries takes time. So from this it follows that, well, maybe the government objective should be to address those industry-specific market failures, right? And help the relevant industries solve these collective action problems. Now the problem is that, well, what you adopt is, when you think like this, is that there can be no comprehensive manual for any country, right? For different industries, there can be different public goods or public inputs, right? Different countries can have different industries, they can be at different stages of development, and they kind of solving the collective action problems and so on and so on. So you can't have this any comprehensive manual. It kind of sums up once, I think, in the early 2000s, there's been like this pretty famous World Bank conclusion, or whatever, the maxim that there's no solution that fits all, right? What's kind of the World Bank's summary of its experience in the development sector. So for this, if you are at some central level in the government to realize, well, okay, if you want to address this industry-specific market failures, provide this public goods, and now you get to a conclusion, you can't do it top-down. You only have to go to this indices and you should start getting information. What is it, right? What is specific bottleneck, a specific market failure, specific public goods, and so on and so on. So for this, you need to have architecture for dialogue between the state and the industries. For example, one of the Baltic arguments is that, well, the South Korea, what was special about this is that this, and some other countries, is that there was precisely this kind of dialogue between the state and the industries. But now we run into a problem, right? Is that whenever you have dialogue with businesses, then something called the rent seeking appears, right? In an extreme form, something called the state capture. And that's what many African countries that's also tried to have all kinds of industrial policies in the past got into. Have corruption and so on and so on, right? Basically for businesses, businessmen want to get profits one way or the other, right? They can get profits by getting this public goods, public inputs from the state. They can get profits by erecting entries to barriers, getting tariffs, protection, getting into the competitors. There's also ways to get higher profits by working with the state, just that they don't lead to any economic growth and prosperity as a result. So the question then is, well, how do you then, there's going to be a dilemma is, well, if you want to if you want to provide this industry-specific public goods, right, in the economic sense, you've got to have this dialogue with the private sector, with the businesses. And then, once the state gets too close in one that with the private businesses, then kind of the things like all the state capture and the rent seeking can begin. So how can we get one and guard yourself against the other one, against something that the economists call the governance? fail. So, well, what's offered here trying to do is that one must have a clear public goods criteria. The state only gives support to something that clearly conforms to the public good definition, benefits not specific firms but all the industry, right? Non-excludable joint consumption. The second one is a sunset clauses, so that any kind of support or aid is provided for only a specific time period. Say 3 years, there's a maximum extension for 2 years, nothing stays forever. The emphasis on facilitating industry's collective action, and after all, the idea is that in the end, the industry should be able to, well, organize and constructively lobby for the public interests themselves, right? Not things to be forced for them from the state. And the last is that the dialogue maybe should be with associations and not specific businessmen, right? So that would ensure that in the business associations, the different interests or the competing interests of the different businessmen will sort of be as a check and balance on each other. Okay, so let's think I'm past my time. I had these 2 examples here. I don't know, do I have time for this? I think the one is I mentioned. The other one, okay. That's the second example of this policy. There's a region called Latvia in Latvia. It's I think it is really high likelihood it is the most depressed region in Europe. Right? There's kind of huge economic problems. In Latvia, there's consistently, and not just a result of the recent crisis, the unemployment rates are 20% on average. In some regions of Latvia, they're 30%. Right? So it's kind of the region which in the past used to have some Soviet kind of industry, which then was gone, and then has never been able to stand back on its feet. Right? Oh, 5 minutes. That's generous. Okay, and this recently, well, also this has been some pretty interesting experience in actually going to think about how this development policies can be devised. Right? There's been one way. And this is kind of the regional policy issue, and that's some ministries and this kind of development, whatever people. They've read some literature, some OECD literature of what is kind of the latest and the brightest in the regional policy, and the latest and the brightest, the most modern was providing, say, business consultants that will help people start their own businesses, and so on and so on, and some other stuff. Right? And that was how some kind of top-down that was implemented to this. Well, not yet implemented, but on its way to Latvia. Then there's something that also I did. Also interestingly, this first approach is also something that I would do in my what I would call a previous life. I did some desk research. Okay, it's what the literature says is the best, and that's probably also a good idea for this specific region and so on and so on. But then in my kind of new life, I also had to actually go down there and talk to associations and the businessmen and the people. And the interesting thing is that this first approach, it's being ridiculed by most of kind of the local people, businesses, successful businessmen, associations that live there. And talking to them kind of in, let's say, an informed fashion, because of course when you talk to them, then much of what you get is, well, in terms of requests, is I would call maybe undiplomatically kind of rubbish, in the sense that, well, we want to get lower taxes, whatever, we just want money, we just want either money or lower taxes and so on. But once you try to get sort of more to the bottom of things, you realize that there's actually really many relatively small things that you'll never understand if you read an OECD book on regional development, that they are missing out there. Beginning with reliability of electricity supply, that is a major element for some of the foreign investments, and ending with certain kind of too sparsely populated areas, as a result of which you might have an enterprise in one place. You can basically have a paradox where a foreign investor experiences a deficit of labor in the region, where the unemployment is about 0%. How is that? Because the foreign investor can only hire people about kind of competitive at a certain wage. but the region is so sparsely populated, right? So that for those who have relevant skills, they live so far away that if they were to travel to this factory by themselves, then net of what they would get at this factory, the net of transport costs, it would be less than what they would receive if they just lived in welfare. Right? So that's kind of the things you would, really, as I said, never understand if you were just to cover yourself from just being kind of a desk researcher on the development issues like this. Right? So that, I think, is also, in my experience, a great argument in favor of that Baltics approach. Right? You just got to go there and get your hands dirty and get to understanding the kind of some specificities of regions and industries to understand where those specific public goods and the market failures are. Right? Well, that's of course it's work. Anyway, so I was going to cut on 10 minutes, so that would be it. Thank you. I don't know if there's any expected to answer questions or not really.
I suggest that we do it after.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and it is my pleasure to be here and to start off with a quotation that Professor Kasekamp preferred back about Professor Target saying that there is an emotional die missing among the Baltic countries. Just remember yesterday evening reading through Estonian media, and one very wise Finnish person divided Europe into 3 categories in more emotional terms. That the countries which feel humiliated, the countries which feel scared, and the countries where there is a hope. And saying that Baltic countries are definitely countries where there is hope. And I think to redefine it, we have an emotional die, we have hope. But is this hope justified? Yeah, I raised this question whether we are ready for challenges ahead, and in order to answer it and to understand it, then we need to see how we are placed in more global arena and in Europe. So basically, what I try to explain you is very shortly what are the wider developments in global arena, what is the European perspective there, and is there actually a window of opportunity for the Baltics? Just presenting some of the ideas in the area of knowledge economy and innovation. So my work is very much involved understanding what is happening in Europe and how it influences Eastern European countries and also Central Asia, but what is happening in Europe and the world, it's very easily explained that if you look at these pies, then we have a problem when some countries are spending more than half of resources available for social protection as Europe or United States for military, then well, the underlying sort of reasons are clearly there. And and I guess the world would look a lot more different if we put the same figures to the map. Not the best picture to live with. So, and to add up to this unbalanced government expenditure, we have to also recognize the demographics of the world, where clearly the Western Europe, emerging Europe, and even more so Northeast Asia are seeing a downturn trend, North Africa, America, growing quite well in this sense. Coming to Europe, then yes, it's also seeing well, we are part of Europe, and we need to recognize that the fiscal adjustment needs, not only because of the pension and healthcare spending, but also because of the unbalanced public finances that lead to the fact that in coming 10 or 20 years there is an enormous task ahead for the European countries, especially in Southern Europe, which is clearly more driven by the public spending in general. But the same applying to the central, and I would say that the Baltic countries in the EU 12 there are in that sense much better positioned, but it doesn't sort of solve the problem of the Europe, where the adjustment needs lead to the fact that we have very little room to promote and to finance the growth of European countries. So, in addition, we have to see when we think about the competitiveness of Europe and also the Baltic countries, then we need to look at the productivity levels, and it's clear that after the millennium, the European competitiveness has decreased quite substantially. Of course, the EU 12 and among the Baltic countries, because of the sort of low-cost competitive advantage is raised, but there is enormous gap of productivity levels compared to the United States. Come to the main topic, and to understand the field of possibility that my co-panelist touched upon already, about innovation and knowledge economy, then to compare the expenditure percentage-wise from GDP, then the leaders in the Europe are not doing badly, and leaders are very close Nordic countries. But if you think about the scale of investment, then it's just too small to be competitive enough with the Japanese and United States. And well, this leads to the next point, to understand what is the way for Europe, because clearly we need to combine our forces here and in order to be more competitive and to survive in this rough environment. And well, there has been a lot of discussion about having more Europe, and in a field of innovation, this very much applies. I would probably question more Europe in some other areas, but in a field of innovation, there is clearly an advantage of driving more Europe in area of making common market actually work, especially when it comes to integrating the e-communication market, because it was quite shocking for me to see that the difference in the countries when it comes to the cost of e-communication for enterprises, it's almost 300%. So it is a clear sort of advantage for the Europe as a whole to work on this area. And of course, there is, yes, we have got one of the basic things about having European patent, which just doesn't happen because of the language issues and disputes between the countries. So all these little simple things that would make things for the EU 12 countries and for the Baltic very much more favorable because of our high level of integration to the rest of Europe. And yeah, to look at the Baltic status here, then it's well, Estonia is leading in R&D expenditure. I have to point out, but to have something back from the global competitiveness or the indexes, but in a more wider, it's still quite low levels of what we are able to finance, and considering our sort of economic structure and the problems ahead, the levels should be much more higher. So moving from Europe to the Baltic countries especially, and giving some sort of comparison element with the other countries, then in the area of knowledge-intensive services export, we are not doing bad at all. I must say, if you look at the percentage of knowledge-intensive exports in the services sector, then yes, Latvia is leading. I shouldn't have included this slide, but the overall development in services sector is rather competitive and rather well developed. The story is a bit different when we come to when we look at the high-tech product export. Then yeah, well, in case of Estonia, there is an effect of Sony Ericsson very clearly affecting this table being higher, but the overall sort of the industrial capacity of delivering high-tech products is not yet there. So, as I would like to leave some time for discussion also, then I come to the end of my presentation, and there are a couple of ideas and question marks for the way ahead for the Baltics. It's clear that well, very close to my heart is financing of knowledge economy and having venture capital available for financing it. There, I just a couple of days ago heard that now the European Investment Fund has agreed with the countries involved to have a Baltic innovation fund in place, which I think is a very good step ahead, because when you look at the financing or venture capital financing in Europe and US, there is a huge gap, and venture capital goes usually to the region. They don't see countries individually, and I think having sort of a regional mechanism in place is very valuable for developing such sectors. From this slide, it's clear that we are never never able to, in individual terms, to compete in hybrid production market, but there is a clear competitive advantage considering our high level of countries being in sector in service sector, in ICT service sector, which is an opportunity, and combined with the proper educational policy and lifelong learning would help to create this area very much. Nordic-Baltic cooperation, it is that we are in a very good neighborhood with Finnish, Swedish partners, helping also the Baltic countries develop, and there, well, so the experience and the chance for the Baltic countries is to attract the Nordic countries, first of all, move towards Baltic countries, and then we have seen a couple of good examples of Sony Ericsson from Sweden, IKEA also from Sweden to Lithuania, and but not only. The next step should be moving together towards emerging markets, because unfortunately it is quite clear that if we want to grow, then we need to see beyond European markets and to look at the emerging markets where our only possibility is to do it together. Otherwise, we are just not. We're too small to make a difference there. And this, of course, leads to a wider issues of diversifying the export markets and the overall economic structures in our countries. So, yes, that's what I wanted to say. Not more, but in order to save time, then end here, and then we will have a nice discussion.
Thank you.